Joining me today for RD to RD Live. Very excited to have Ilene on today. She's going to discuss the topic of how to get your CEU course approved from the Commission on Dietetic Registration. And this is a really timely topic because if you don't know, starting June 1st, the Commission on Dietetic Registration begins charging a application fee if you want to get, whether it's a course, basically to get anything approved for continuing education. So if you've been on the fence about putting together a webinar or a course, now is the time to act to save yourself a little bit of money. It's $30 for less than 10 and under CEUs, or if it's more than 10, it's $60 fee. So you'll definitely save yourself some money by going ahead and getting the application in before June 1st. So I thought, what better way to help out my RD colleagues but to bring on someone who is in the process right now and is going through getting her course approved, and how she tackled this. It's a bit of a beast of a process, and how she organized and got her course approved for continuing ed. So welcome, Ilene. Thanks for being on the RD to RD live show today. It's a pleasure having you.
Having me. Thank you so much for having me, Megan.
Yeah. So I always like to start out the live show by giving our guests a chance to share. All of us have a journey. We didn't become a registered dietitian overnight, and what we specialize in now sometimes was a windy road to get there. So I'd love to learn more about your practice, which is, I don't want to mispronounce it, it's PranaSpirit Nutrition and Wellness. Spirit Nutrition and Wellness. And I love that you have this combination of nutrition, fitness, and yoga, and would love for you to tell us a little bit more about your background as a dietitian, but also about your course, which is how to speak Spanish with your patients and how that came to be.
All right. So I'll give you a little overview. So I am, like Megan mentioned, I'm a registered dietitian, certified diabetes educator, and just in a nutshell, how I became a yoga teacher, I was working for a really busy corporate job. I was working as a dietitian, and I kind of burnt out. Just to cut to the chase. And I said, I'm just going to leave, even though my dad always told me never leave a job without having a job. And I quit, right? And then I went and enrolled. I had been practicing yoga. So I went and enrolled in a summer-long yoga teacher training, and I just became a yoga teacher. And then I was like, I didn't really think I was going to teach, but my intention was more for myself, right? To find that peace within. And then I realized that I could really incorporate it into my practice. So I couldn't use it much in the hospitals. And then fast forwarding years later, went and opened up my private practice, PranaSpirit Nutrition and Wellness. And to this day, I would say I do yoga with the majority of my patients. It's in one form or another, whether it be breathing, mindfulness, meditation. So it's very cool. My ultimate dream is to open up a yoga studio and combine them all here in New York. So we'll keep you posted on that. But fast forwarding to the course. So while I was building this private practice, Megan, I said, I need a little bit of side income, because you know how it is when you start a practice, it's a business. And I said, what could I do that it might not be nutrition related, but I need some money coming in. So I said, well, I know that I'm really good in Spanish. I always took it. My father was born and raised in Cuba, so I had a background. I said, let me see if I could tutor Spanish. So I enrolled in, I got contracted with a local tutoring company, and I started tutoring high school and college kids in Spanish while I was in private practice. Needless to say, I enjoyed it, but to be honest, it was more for the income, right? A little bit on this. I didn't pay badly. Actually, I think I was making like $30 an hour to tutor. Listen, at the end of the day, it's sad to say that it pays more than some RT jobs were. So anyways, doing this tutoring, and then fast forwarding, I was at a diabetes dinner with another dietitian, one of the pharma dinners, and the person sitting next to me said, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I'm in private practice, and I'm doing some tutoring on the side in Spanish. She looked at me and said, I wish I knew Spanish. And then a light bulb went off, right, at that moment. And I said, wait, 2 and 2 together, right? Dietitians need to learn Spanish. And I'm a tutor now, right? And I had been learning a lot of techniques through tutoring that I really was like, I got to put together some courses. So fast forwarding, I applied for CDR. That was my first program, was the Spanish one-on-one program. I started teaching RDs. And I had a couple of clients, and things went really well. I would tape the sessions. I would do conversation with them, and they would earn 8 CEUs for the course. Kind of cool. So then fast forwarding, and then that kind of I renewed it, but it didn't, because then my practice started getting really busy. And then what happened was I was enrolled in one of the online courses, Master the Media, really, really good course. And then it dawned on me, I put 2 and 2 together again. And I said, if I did this before, I could put together an online course in Spanish to teach RDs, right? So I got a little, I said something, I said, hey, how did you guys do this? Got a little bit of advice. And then I decided that I needed a partner, because I can't do it by myself. So I contacted my friend Alenka Rovnik-List, who's an amazing dietitian, diabetes educator. She's not here today because she's busy with her patients, but she's my colleague, my team player here. And we put together this course, Speak Spanish with Your Patients. And it's an online course, and we are almost done. We're almost done taping, recording, and it's going to be about 12 to 14 CEUs by the time we're done.
That's awesome. I love how that connection happened for you, and that evolution. I think sometimes we see the products that people have, but we don't always know the backstory of what they started with and how they got to where they are. And so I honestly didn't know that you had done, how you went from this tutoring to kind of a one-to-one mentoring, and then we often see that we're working with our clients one-to-one, and whether it's Spanish or something else, we see that opportunity to reach more, and an online course is such an excellent way. So how exciting. I'm really thrilled to dig into how you tackled this. I'm going to check to make sure that people don't have questions about your background before I dive in. I get so excited that I oftentimes forget to check questions. So feel free, if you people who have questions about feel free to jump in and ask them, and I will make sure to loop back around. So
it shows people are interested, right?
Yes.
I think there's a lot of interest, especially diet, and this is what our mission is, to really reach RDs around the country that work in these Spanish-speaking areas where they get a lot of Spanish-speaking patients. New York, Texas, right? California.
Yes.
I mean, areas, and really, the language line. I mean, they're sitting there trying to communicate with these patients. Even from where you're from, Megan, in Boston, you might have, but not as.
I moved from San Diego, and I have to tell you, working in healthcare, I use the language line a lot. I speak Spanish. I almost minored in college, but in order to speak in the hospital setting, you have to pass that proficiency test in order to be, to meet the regulatory requirements to talk about medical information. And there was always that fine line of whether a nutrition assessment, education is, talking about food, maybe not. So yes, you're right, that language line. So so there's why bother to get continuing education? People will pay for a course anyway. So what prompted you to say, you know what, I want to go through the process? What was that? Why did you decide I need CEUs associated with my course?
So, so like I mentioned, I got CEUs from the start in my other courses. So I had experience. And what I learned through that process was that if I got CEUs, I got more customers, right? More people, because, and I'll tell you this, my first client, RD, we're now friends. She's amazing. And she's really using the Spanish. She said to me, listen, I think my job will pay for this, right? And so I was able to write her a little letter saying, hey, this course is prior approved for 8 CEUs. She brought it to her boss, and they reimbursed her. Isn't that amazing? So that was definitely, knowing that, it's like, okay, people might be able to get reimbursed for the course. Right. So that's something to think about. And what we're going to use that in our marketing message too. Hey, if you take this, we are prior approved. So you might get reimbursed if you bring this to your employer. So that's one reason.
Yeah.
The other reason is marketing, because CDR has a database, right? That for all prior approved courses. And I've been contacted, I've done other programs as well. I've done yoga retreats for dietitians and things like that I've gotten approved. And I've had people contact me through my website, because they went onto the CDR website, and then CDR lists those courses. So again, it's marketing, right?
People, if they're going to pay for something, you're required to have the continuing educations. If you can find something that meets both, you're probably going to pull in more customers than if you're
100%. It's about visibility, right? And then also, and this is something I just discovered more in this course, which is what we're going to be doing. And we haven't yet done it, but CDR has marketing tools that you would basically purchase lists from them. So, and here's the cool part. You don't have to have your course officially prior approved to purchase a list. You only have to be at the stage where you submit the course for approval. So like, let's say, for example, you're putting together this course, you submit the application, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. You submit the application the next day or that day, you just call up CDR, they have contacts to handle the lists. And they'll say, as long as you've submitted the course, you could purchase a list and start marketing.
That's fantastic. I actually didn't. I knew you could purchase a list from them, but I didn't realize you could do it while you're in that 4 to 6 week waiting game.
I know, and neither did we. And that was what was cool, was that initially I was like, okay, well then once we get approved, we'll move forward with the marketing and we'll buy the list.
That 4 weeks is an eternity. When you're getting ready to launch a course, you're like, I can't wait. So that is a major nugget.
That's a major nugget,
awesome.
Guys. So those of you who are looking to do this, you really want to consider that you could start your marketing right away. And it's not too bad. I mean, it's like maybe $335 something $300-ish to buy a list of email of 1,000 names and email across the country. Amazing.
And I think, if you don't, if you have a product, you need to sell it to someone unless you have your own list or have access to other people, or sometimes you offer affiliate and you think about how much you might be losing in affiliate sales. You're always going to be paying to access somebody else's audience, typically,
100%.
for the most part.
That's such a great point, Megan, because if you have an email list, I know we use Constant Contact, but we're now using MailChimp, so that's free.
Right.
But we have a very small list, to be honest. I mean, we just, we didn't have a list. So this is just a way, and what we're kind of thinking to do is to, because I did some research. They only allow you to do 2 emails. So they'll allow, and then they'll have to review your email to make sure it meets their requirements. So Ilene and I said, okay, we're not ready to submit yet because we want to make sure it looks really good. But what we're going to do is say, okay, we're going to put out this email, very professional, showing our course when we have it really like together, when it's gold. And then we're going to say, here, you can also subscribe to our email list.
Right.
And here you get this, gift. And we have, of course, the lead magnet, which is like a PDF downloadable of English, Spanish breakfast foods or whatever we're offering. But that's the point, is if they'll convert to our list, they'll become one of our customers, and then we can build our list that way too.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for that nugget. So I have spent some time researching the course approval process, and I submitted my boot camp recently and it was approved, but you have a lot more experience than I do. So let's kind of lay the groundwork for everybody here. We're going to talk specifically about an online course today because we know there's lots of things you can get approved, but today we're kind of focusing in on a course. So there's like 2 options. If you have an online program, that from what I understand, you can either do a live event or you can do it as a self-study. So what exactly is the difference? And then let us know what you decided to do.
Sure. So the difference, the live event is, which was surprising to me, we had thought that the pre-recorded course, right, like an e-course, would be considered a self-study. Right. That was our first thought. So when we were going to go in, and I was even saying to Ilene, we're going to have to get 3 content reviewers. We're going to have to do a lot more work. So what a live event essentially is it's a live webinar, right? A live presentation, anything that is essentially that there's an audience. Okay, so you're getting that approved. And then that live event, I just got off the phone with CDR this week because we were fine-tuning things. They can, the live event, it can be good for a year after you get approved. So in other words, once your live event is approved, people, and this is another benefit to getting an event approved, prior approved, they can listen to the recording for up to a year. So let's say somebody did not participate in your event live. They can still, 2 weeks later, access your product and still get CEUs.
Do they have to purchase prior to the actual live event in order, or can you sell it up for that year?
That's brilliant. You can sell it. So in other words, what you're asking, Megan, is can they purchase your course before the live event, before the recording?
Do they have to purchase it before you broadcast live to get eligible for CEs? Okay,
that's a brilliant question. To get the CEUs themselves, they can purchase it before, but to get the CEUs, they have to actually participate in the course.
Right.
So in other words, like they can, because we're doing a little pre-selling too, they can purchase your course a month in advance if you pre-sell it. But when you release that course to them is when they'll have access to it. Then they watch the course and then they get their CEU certificate.
Right.
So yeah.
I think it's similar to like Nutrition Entrepreneurs Practice Group. If you, they have their almost monthly webinars, but if you miss the monthly webinar, you can always go back and listen to it in the library and still get a CEU for it. So
it's
kind of similar
concept.
Yeah.
It's the same concept. And you know how you notice with their webinars that they'll have access for about a year or so. I think they even say, unless, well, actually, wait, hold on. I just remembered something. I spoke with CDR. This is on the website. It says a year, but you know what they told me? It's actually 3 years. It's 3 years. Isn't that wonderful? So you actually have 3 years to download it and receive those CEUs. So let's say you get busy. You buy the course, which most people will do the course when they buy it. But let's say you had to wait, you will be able to get it up to 3 years.
Yeah, it did say 3 years. It's very confusing because a lot of times you see one and their stuff online says 3. So I want to get into this fine point of what is live and what is having an audience. So this is like a very interesting piece of information here.
Yeah, that's amazing. Hey, Megan, I wanted to go back because I think I forgot to answer part of your question about the self-study. So just what a self-study is, and this is what we had thought our pre-recorded course would be a self-study. A self-study is something that you're not necessarily doing live, okay? It could be a book. It could be an audio book, something where I associate it a lot more with reading, right?
Self-paced, Yeah,
it's your self-paced. So, but that makes a lot of sense that they would allow which we'll get into in a bit, they would allow a digital course to actually be a live event. That's the best part because we did not know that. We thought we would have to submit that as a self-study. And we learned differently, which is amazing.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Exactly.
So that fine point. I want to I feel like it's pertinent right here to kind of talk about the difference between a live event. Okay, so if you're doing a course, maybe you're going to have these lessons, but only a very small, like how do you get your course that's live, but most people maybe won't be watching it live?
Yeah, no, it's a brilliant question. It's like, and this is an important question for your audience too, who, you're digital, we're helping to promote RDs doing digital products, right? How do we all get our digital products approved as a live event? Which is the brilliant question of the day. I mean, this was like, we thought we were going to have to submit as a self-study. So I'll tell you the story. I just pick up the phone. I'm very, I don't email. I like to call because you get better information that way. I called CDR. I spoke with the person in charge of the prior approval. And I said, is it possible at all to get this approved as a live event? Oh no, I know what happened. I said to her, I'm assuming we're going to have to do this as a self-study. So we have to get these content reviewers. And I was asking her about the content reviewers and all that we had to do because that self-study requires 3 content reviewers. So then they have to fill out a form and whatnot. And to my surprise, CDR, the person said, actually, you can do that as a live event. And I was like, wait a minute. Like I said to her, what do you mean? It's a recorded course. She said, no. If you get anybody to listen to your course, so the point is you have to have an audience listen to your course while you are recording it. Okay. Then that counts as a live event. That becomes recorded. And then you can then claim the CEUs for 3 years after that. Isn't that amazing? So it was like so cool. And I was like, it's amazing. We'll get an audience.
Exactly. So you just need, while you're recording your lessons, you need to have somebody listening to you live. Then that recording is good for future people who weren't present at the live. But because it was recorded live, it's got that 3-year approval window associated with it.
Just because it was recorded live.
With an audience.
With an audience.
And your audience, we got to get digger. I can't speak, dig deeper, is that does your audience have to be a dietitian?
That's a brilliant question. We didn't even plan that. Just kidding. So does your audience? It doesn't. Isn't that interesting? So what we did, we thought at first it did, because we just thought logically, right? Or we just made a lot of assumptions. You make these assumptions in the beginning with things. We said, so what we did was in our nutrition entrepreneurs, they give, for those of you who are members, they give you every, 4 months, you have a chance to promote your product or service. So we put an email out and we said, we're looking for volunteers to listen to our course while we're taping. And they said, we're looking for volunteers. We didn't get that descriptive. And then we got some volunteers. volunteers, that I want to call in and we're going to be taping on a Sunday, and then we shared the details. But then we kind of were like, well, what if one day we didn't get the volunteer, so I called CDR and I asked the contact person, and she said it could be anybody. It doesn't have to be an RD. That's it. So anybody, your husband, could just be sitting there listening, and that counts as your audience.
Yeah. So we do have one question. So I'm going to,
okay.
One question, but
that's great.
So this is the piece I was trying to get to a little bit earlier. And I think maybe now that we've unearthed that. So if they buy the recorded course after it's live, so they make their purchase, after the live recording happened, can they still get CEUs?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Because in other words, the live event had happened and you have up to 3 years to get your CEUs. So you have up to 3 years to watch that course to get your CEUs.
And sell that course. Like you can continue to market and sell your course for that time period.
That's a brilliant distinction, Megan, because you're going to want to continuously sell your course. Yeah. So you wouldn't have to update that with CDR, with another application for 3 years, which is advantageous because, as you said in the beginning, with the prices changing and now we have to pay, we won't have to pay for 3 years.
Right.
Which is cool,
Exactly. And the one thing, though, there is a 3-year clock, but as we know, content needs to be updated routinely.
Exactly.
The self-study doesn't have that expiration window, that content to the same degree, right?
That's true. Although I think a self-study, you also have 3 years. I'm not 100% on that.
Yeah.
Do you have to know, or?
I have to look it up again.
Right.
What I feel like they have their handbook, that kind of detail is in there, but I think some of what we're talking about is not in there. So
no, I don't think so. No. This is nitty-gritty.
It's not in there. It's not in there.
And that's a really good point, because we asked CDR what we should do if we need to update. Because another thing I forgot to mention, which is kind of cool, you can submit your course without knowing exactly how many hours you're going to have. Interesting, right? So, ultimately, because here's the thing. You can submit it, and then you can then add 2 or 3 more hours. And what you'll do is anything you're adding, you go back to CDR, you send them an email, and then they update that. But you've already been approved. So I think that's key, because you can still market that you're approved, right? And then you can always add on, and you won't have to submit any more money.
Right. And actually definitely getting your application in before June 1st and be like, well, I'm not going to be ready. Just get the application in.
No, that's a brilliant. Well, that's why I made that point, because you don't have to. You can even say, like, my hypothesis is that this course is going to be about 10 hours. So I'm going to apply for 10 hours. They're approving you for 10 hours, but if there's any edits, you can always edit it. Either way.
Yeah, so map something out. We're very type A oftentimes, so we're like, well, it's not completely 100%, but they understand this is a live event. You can't always predict wwhat's going to happen, your content. So it's going to happen.
I think it's a good point. And just to make one more distinction, Megan, to that, I think when you are providing the course, like at that point that the student or the client is whoever's receiving the CEUs, you have to know how many CEUs at that point. So in order to provide it, put it this way, when the course goes live, when the course is on sale, you have to know how many CEUs, at that point.
You do.
In the planning stages, you can submit that and you can get an approval and then edit it before you're ready to go live.
Right. That's a very good point. So now that we've kind of talked about all the things that you have to do, how did you approach the approval process, like the steps? How did you plan it out? You've done this a few times.
Yes.
What works for you?
Okay, so CDR has a database, and they even have some nice tutorials. It's like 5 minutes. What you do is you just you need a content outline. So that's the first step, right? You have to. So what I do, the way I approach it and the way I organize is I take our course and I make an outline of every module, how long each module is going to be, right? You're writing all that out systematically. And then what CDR really wants is just a content outline. It's the times you're going to be teaching, how long each module is, the titles of each module. And then that's what they look. So that's the first step. They want your CV, they want a bio. gather that information, which most of us already have, right? So I think the most time-consuming process is the content outline. Oh, here's a tip. You have to complete the application all in one shot.
Right.
So in other words, and I learned that the hard way. I think
Me
the
too.
first time I did it, didn't you? Right?
Yep.
And then you put it off and you're like, are you kidding me? Like you think that there would be a way to save it, right? But no criticism. To each their own, and that's the way the system is, right? You got to work the system. So anybody who's doing this, highly recommend you put it in a Word document. We used Google Docs, and that was nice in doing our course because, again, I have a business partner, Alenka, so we would kind of put the outline together. She would make comments. I would edit it. Actually, this module's longer, so we would, get the timing right. And then you take that, you copy and paste it, and you put it in to the CPR database so that essentially when you log in, within 20 minutes, your application's done.
Yeah, and it's a separate login. Always remember that, right? It's not your regular CDR login. It's not mine anyway.
Correct.
It's some weird combo of letters and numbers. And there's no option to manually reset your password. You have to email and wait for a human being to send you your password. It's like one of the only websites where there's no self-service password reset. So do not wait. If you already have a login and you don't know your password, do not think you're going to, on May 31st, get this done because you won't be able to get in if you don't know your password.
You're making a brilliant point, and that happened to me. I forgot my password, and then you have to find it, and then they have to reset it for you and send you another email.
And you have to wait until they do that. There is no way around that. So if you do not know your password and you've submitted something in the future, right now, go ahead and get your password and save that somewhere.
Yeah, another good tip, of course, another good tip is to save the email. That's what I did. Put it in a folder so and then you look it up and that's it. And then you got it. Or if anybody, you know how a lot of people put the passwords in a certain application or something.
Just save it.
Do, right? Yeah, you don't want to be there like my courses, I need to submit, right?
Right.
That's all another reason why to do it in advance, right?
Definitely.
Why to do strategize. I mean, why to do it as soon as you can. So that was kind of my process. It was a lot about the outline, and then I will say that the content indicators, the outcome indicators, very simple. You just, you probably know, Megan, you just go in and they give you a drop down and then you don't even have to do research. You just look at your course. Okay. It's, I think one of ours was cultural sensitivity, right? Select, right? Whatever it is, you select it and then that's it. Content indicators, and then there's
learning codes and something else.
Exactly. Very, very simple, and everything's a drop down.
It is. So I think you're a point well made about getting, organized, going in there and looking at the form that you need to submit and transferring the questions into a Word document so that you can work on it, because you've only got one shot. You've got to go in. You can't save. There's no save a draft. And once you hit submit, you can't edit that. If you need to make a change to it, you've got to contact them and they'll update it for you. So you want to kind of get it, you want it to be as accurate to save yourself time so you don't have to go through the process of asking them to update it for you.
Totally. You've been through this too, right? You remember, right? And so how far, so you got a little bit into it and then it kind of, you were like, oh my God, I can't save. And now I have to start over. Yep. So now we learn, but definitely good stuff, right?
It is. So it sounds like really mapping out your course, but I think where you kind of get stuck, and this was one of the questions, that do you need 3 content reviewers if it's a live event? No. And that's that big, and you don't have to write like operational definitions of your objectives. There's
a little more homework to do with the self-study. I can see why though. I mean, if something is self-paced, they want to make sure it's accurate. And so we were actually chatting about it before we knew what we were going to do. We thought we'd have to do a self-study.
Right.
And we were like, do we have to find people? Do we have to pay them? I mean, at the end of the day, you might be able to barter, but at the end of the day, you need experts, right? So for example, if we would have needed an expert for this if it were a self-study, I was thinking of maybe a Spanish professor or someone who could be attest to this, right? At the end of the day, I don't know if I'd feel comfortable saying, well, we're not going to pay you. I think we would have to, I'd feel more comfortable saying, what do you charge, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's certainly a lot easier, a lot less time. And then you don't have to work with their time deadlines either, right? How long is it going to take them to review your product, right?
Yeah, and I don't think you have to, and I think that other piece, because it's a live event, but that you're going to have a audience, but you're going to be selling mostly the recorded version, that you're going to be able to continue to sell the recorded version.
Absolutely.
That what you're putting in your outline as far as I'm recording on my live events happening May 26th at 1 p.m. It really doesn't matter. That's just when you're recording it because it has to be live, right?
Exactly. Like actually when we got approved, she said, okay, so I'm going to approve you for starting next week, next Monday. And then I said, great, we could start recording next Monday. I just knew that because I knew that we would have to start recording when we got approved. That, you need, well, that's another good distinction. You can submit, but remember that if you're doing that recording and you want to claim CEU for it, it has to be approved before you can start recording.
Correct.
So that's an important distinction. While you can, but that's the reason you want to submit early because it takes up to 4 weeks.
Because recording in this case is synonymous with being live, right? Because it's a live event. So I did it for my boot camp from a couple of weeks ago, that it was a live event. So I had 5 days in a row of little trainings that now the recorded version that I have of those live trainings are still approved for continuing education.
3 years. Right. Exactly. But the difference, Megan, is that yours really was live for a specific audience, that more like a planned audience.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting, in this case, like they're not paying for, we were offering it for free, a free CEU just to hear the recording. And they don't care either if it's for paid or not, in order to get approved. It can be free, which most of us aren't going to make our courses free.
Correct. So going to go back to some more questions.
Glad we got audience questions.
Jessiane is very happy that was a huge barrier. And I would agree that now that, you can, it's like a big weight gets lifted when you can manage your course as a live event.
Yes.
So we also have, can the live presentation be a PowerPoint presentation within a video and someone talking over it? So how do you use technology?
Really good question. That's a really good question. So what they're asking is, can the live event, in a sense, can that be a recorded video? I don't know. I would have to guess yes, because it's live and it's for an audience. Right? It's although I'm not 100% sure. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you
Make sure we understand that question correctly.
Right.
PowerPoint presentation within a video. I don't know if you're live streaming, you're broadcasting a video to an audience.
To an audience, but you're not actually talking. Is that what the person?
I'm not quite sure. So maybe we'll clarify that question a little bit. We want to make sure we answer
if the person's presenting. Because I think if the person's presenting, definitely, it's just if they're not presenting, like for example, if you know how they have those evergreen kind of webinars?
Yeah.
Schedule it and it's already recorded.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant question though. Would that count as a live event?
Yeah. I would say, because it's not you live. I don't know. That'd be maybe a good question for CDR. You have to get on the phone and update us all.
I know, put them on the list. And I have to say, they're very receptive. I mean, they probably get questions because it's, there's a lot of nuances, right?
Right, exactly.
That actually is quite an interesting one,
Yeah, and I think it, was maybe one that I'll reach out to. We had Heather Neal on before about the RD Entrepreneur Symposium because I was a speaker, but I recorded my own presentation and I did not have an audience at the time I recorded that. So it technically is not a live event, but so I'm curious as to the approval process for that. So since you didn't do it that way, you can't really speak to it.
You can't really go back, right?
No, I don't know.
It's interesting.
Exactly.
But we can always get back to them.
Talking live. Okay,
I'd be curious to look into it, Megan, and maybe get back to them because I think it's a great question.
Yeah. And then another question about so you talked about editing after you submit your approval, and I know we're kind of in a rush now because we have this, a little bit of a money incentive.
Right.
How much content how many content changes can you make? There will be a lot of added details.
Yes.
How many edits have you made? Fairly substantial?
Throughout the years. I can tell you with this course, we actually have not yet made any edits because we're waiting. We're just finishing up with our very last modules of taping where we're almost done. But we have most of the course done. And then we're going to take the final and then we're going to make any last edits. And then that's going to be our final submission, so to speak, of that, or the final edits, right? Now, my first courses that I got approved, the yoga retreats and I had some little changes with timing and things like that. I think I resubmitted maybe twice, and it was never a problem. I don't think they have a deadline or a limit. I mean, they just say, listen, just send us an email and we'll make an update, right? It's pretty simple. So that's another reason why not to have fear to do it and just go for it, because again, it's another reason it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah. And maybe
always
what I'll do is, just as an example, I can add a document, I think, to this and share what I submitted, just so people can see, that it's not overwhelming. You don't have to worry about it. They approved it.
But it's great. It sounds like some of the hesitations kind of like, well, will I be banned from doing it? If I have to do it too many times, what if I find a typo? They're pretty flexible, and you really can just, it's easy enough for them to make the change once they've approved you.
Okay.
And I think also what I've also learned on that note is that the wait period to get approved, that's the long one, right? That's like the 4 week, if you're lucky. I mean, I've actually, it's funny because the first couple courses, I will not forget this, I wanted to get it approved quicker. And it happened to be a time maybe around the holidays or December. And then I said, hey, is there any way we could get this in a little quicker? And CDR did it for me like that week. They actually did. They said, sure, we're not too busy. And then said, well, within the week. And then the next day it was approved.
Wow, that's impressive. Yeah, I had to wait.
Impressive.
It was almost 4 weeks. The one I just did.
Right.
It took a long time.
Which is the usual. But it's funny because I have gotten courses approved within a week.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
But I've kind of, reached out to them and I've asked them, as
they
a favor.
would.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to us, because you are doing an online course. We talked a little bit about the prior approval process. Mm-hmm. How are students registering for your course and accessing the course material? Because I always think when we talk to course creators to find out what tool you're using and maybe why you chose it.
So we're using Teachable, which is an amazing platform. I think many of our listeners are probably familiar with it, right? Because of a lot of us are using it. And it's been great. It was the Master the Media. I got some advice that tool was excellent. And pretty much we're almost done. It's just a little bit of putting the fine tunings in Teachable, and then the students can access the course by, right now we have it linked to our website. Mm-hmm. So they can kind of look at our website and click on the I want in button, and then it brings them to our Teachable page. And the funny part, Megan, is I spent this weekend kind of putting together the checkout page, the sales page, and Teachable, because let's face it, that's if they can't purchase it, you're not going to have sales, right? So I had to link that to the website, and that's coming along pretty well, and they can purchase it that way.
Oh, cool.
Through the website, yeah.
And then we've talked a lot about, we've kind of thrown in a ton of lessons, but I always wanting to make sure that any other like little nuggets, things that you learned in the process that you would say, if you are going in, what should you know? What are you?
Yes. No, this is always a good question. And there's always lessons to be learned, and there's always mistakes you're going to make, right? I think our biggest lesson was planning. Because I know that we got really excited about the opportunity and we wanted to just dive in. And, I called Alenka. She's actually a colleague and friend of mine. We both work together at Mount Sinai. She's, I wish she were here today, but she's from Argentina. She's lovely. And that was, just to backtrack, that was one of the motivations to get her to present with me, because I'm very fluent, but I'm not a native speaker. So, I wanted to have her there, and she does a lot of the Spanish, the accent. So I was getting off track. You had asked me what we learned. Yes. So we got really excited, and we just said, okay, we're going to get this done in like a month. You know what I mean? We're going to plan our webinar. We're going to have this done in about a month. Well, that was like 6 months ago. You know what I mean? So we found that we didn't really plan enough time. We wanted a little bit of time management. And what we learned is that maybe a more solid business plan. We did do a business plan, but if we could have done it over again, it would be to sit down and say, what is every step of this process going to look like, and how much time will each step take us? Because we looked at the big picture, but I don't think we were focused as much on all the details, right? Yes. All the little details and the stuff that might come up along the way. Like, even just like the webinar, right? Okay, so we have to do this webinar. Well, then what are the steps involved in that process?
I was thinking like kind of now that you said the planning part, and since you've been through the process, if you would break things down into kind of some bigger buckets that you said, wow, you know, there's one thing that we jump to. We're like, oh, a course is creating the lessons. No. That's like a little piece of it. It's everything else. What were the big what took up the big parts of your time getting this course off the ground?
It really, honestly, putting together the modules. I mean, it's like so much work. It really is. And you know, and when you sell a course and it's so heartfelt, you can't even imagine how much work goes on in the back end, right? It's like, I mean, I'll give you an example. We thought we were going to tape in one weekend. You know, I went over to Alenka's. She lives, you know, kind of like in Westchester County where it's kind of quiet. We didn't want to have the hustle bustle of the city noise. And we thought we were going to finish. And this came up and wait a minute. Oh my God, we didn't have the volume up enough, or something happened where we had to retape, right? Or oh my God, there was a pause on this slide. Why didn't we look at that to begin with? So now that we have the ropes, it's already been, this is going on our 4th weekend that we're taping.
Wow.
So I'm saying, but we didn't anticipate all that, right? So I think you want to give, my lesson that I would recommend, my suggestion would be to give buffer time. It's almost like just double whatever you think and allow, it's like the way that if we're stuck in traffic or something, or you know how you have a job interview and you allow that extra time in case of traffic. Same thing with a course, right? Allow extra time from what you think it's going to take, because at the end of the day, you have no idea how much time it's going to take.
Yes.
You know, you just don't. You know?
Yes. I think I love making this point every time we have somebody on who's, whether they've done a book or a course or everybody, the theme every single time is how much we underestimate planning and the importance of planning. And I think I can't do one of these interviews without really pointing that out, that whatever you're doing in the digital world, whether it's a course or, you know, a book or a toolkit or a handout, it's going to take more time than you thought. And to be the most efficient, putting a plan in place, right? Those steps are going to happen whether you plan for them or not. So absolutely talking to someone who's been down the path before, and so that there's fewer surprises, so that you can better plan your time and meet your deadline and get your course out with the least amount of pulling your hair out and frustration.
It's so true. Because I think at the end of the day, because then if you don't plan right, that's when you can get a little stressed, right? It's like, oh my God, then, you know, for example, like we're going to be fine, but you know, we're launching, meaning our course is opening up. So any pre-sales we've done and any students who buy it, you know, that's May 30th is when the course is available, right? Wow. So we have to meet that. It's coming up, right? And we're almost done and we're going to meet our deadline. But the point is that honestly, if we could have done it again, maybe we would have had it done sooner, maybe like a couple weeks in advance of that, and then had a chance to instead of being at the last minute, right?
So tell us about your course, Speak Spanish with Your Patients, a little bit more, because we've talked a lot about the course process, but I think as a course creator, there's a lot of different ways, I think, so I want to know about the content, but then I also want to know how you know, is this mostly their homework? Is it, you know, kind of academic style? Tell us a little bit more about your course and why you thought it was a really good fit for the content that you're teaching.
Yes. Okay. So it's such a passion. Our course is it's really geared to dietitians. So and what we say is that, you know, and we say this from the very beginning, you're not going to be fluent in our course, maybe not, because it's for a beginner audience. It could be for people who have some speaking ability, but really need help with conversing with their patients. But we have confidence that you will be able to conduct a session with your patients. So that's the claim we're making. And through our course, so what we do is we start with module 1, just, you know, pleasantries and, you know, hi, hello, how are you? And just getting to know a patient, right? Come to my office, that type of vocabulary, phraseology. Then we move into the consultation, where we go deep. In each module, we have a focus on food, of course, and the diet recall, which is a huge part of an initial session, right? We go into lab values, basically anything that you're going to need to talk with a patient about on an initial consultation, whether it's an outpatient counseling session, inpatient. You know, what we do is we focus. So our course, each module has 6 parts. We have vocabulary. And then we go in and we give you some common words. And then what I do is I say it in English. And then Alenka says it in Spanish twice, where we have space in between for the participants to practice. So it's a lot of interactive practice within this recorded course, right? And I think that it's really helpful because, if people are like in a live class, you know how you get shy, like, or maybe in like high school Spanish, do you really want to like say it out loud, right? But if you're in the comfort of your own home and you're listening to this recorded course, you can say it, right? You can start practice speaking. So we have vocabulary, and then we go into phrases, and we give you common phrases that both you would say as the dietitian and that the patient would respond. So we have that, and then we repeat, back and forth. We have grammar. So you asked, is there any kind of academic component?
Yeah.
We didn't want to make it too academic because, we're working professionals, but I have a great background in studying Spanish academically. Like, my father was from Cuba, my mother's American, so I had to learn in school. So we do give little lessons, but what we do is we split it up so that it's not too much to digest. It might be just like the present tense of the verb comer, which is to eat, right? Dietitians have to know how to conjugate the verb to eat. Right? Do you eat? Does he eat? Does she eat? Etc. Right. So we go through that. We also cover past tense in this course as well, because to do a diet recall, you have to ask them what they did. Right? Did you eat? Or even the verb like to drink. Did you drink? Did he drink? Did she drink? Nice. So we do grammar. We do pronunciation. Each module has a pronunciation module where we'll take, like, the first module is the alphabet. And then we go into like difficult letters to pronounce. Like, I'm sure you know I wish Alenka were here, but like, the R, I have a pretty good accent, right?
Yeah, you do.
The double R, and we teach you we try to teach you the best we can how to say it. And then there's a lot of repetition.
I actually find this to be really fascinating because that you had someone to work with, and I'm curious about, as I also am kind of thinking about some courses, the value of having somebody else who's as passionate but brings kind of a different skill set, that how different your course probably looks than if you'd have just created it on your own.
Definitely. And, that being said, listen, Alenka and I, that's another thing that we learned is divide and conquer. Like, she has certain strengths, and I think, listen, I'm not a native speaker. I am fluent, right? But you can really hear her accent. If you really want to learn how to pronounce, she's the one, right? So we split that up that way. And then she'll also do a lot of the edits with the Spanish because she's got it, from knowledge with the accents. And, but then, so we divided and conquered that way. But we combined our talents. So we did that pronunciation. And then finally we do, we have 6 parts. Then we have a role play where Alenka and I will, we don't have any video right now, but we have it on the screen where the students can see what we're saying. And then let's say I'm the dietitian, she's the patient, and we'll kind of wrap up what you learned in that module in the role play. Yeah. So like if it's a diet recall and it's breakfast, which is one of our modules, we break down breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We will do the breakfast diet recall. And then finally, you have an interactive quiz in Teachable where you have a multiple choice option to test your knowledge.
Oh, so you are using that quiz option.
We are using the quiz option, which is really very suitable for a language course.
It is. And then what I also thought is interesting is sometimes we see, I'm going to do a course, but then we may offer additional like mentorship or how you structure, because you're doing a business plan. I think you pointed out before that, thinking about where does this fit in the rest of my services and how can I, grow income in other ways, like offering the course plus mentorship. And how did you come up with where this fits in your overall, plan for this side income or other income?
So, and the funny part, Megan, is that this was such a passion. We didn't even think about the mentorship part until maybe the past few weeks, honestly, because we were so caught up. We really went in and we said, we just want to get the course done. That was but then as you start to think about marketing and growing your business, of course, you're going to have, upsell opportunities and opportunities for students to dig deeper, right? And to learn more. So we are going to be offering, one-on-one, and some tutoring. And we even offered, we're offering a little bonus to people that sign on early where they can get a little bit of tutoring from us. But it definitely fits in the plan. I think it comes in the marketing area, when you want to grow. And I think that's, I think it's really important for course creators to think about that, because you always have to keep things fresh, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to keep on selling your course, but then there has to be a way to take your students to a deeper level.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is what always happens on the live show every time is I think, oh, we just started. And then I think, oh my gosh, we've already exhausted our time. So I want to make sure that people know where to go to get more information about your course. So your website or where they can go to find more about. I also have a link in the comments that are associated with the video, but you can go ahead and share your website and stuff.
Of course. So you can go to our website, which is www.speakspanishwithpatients.com. So you just have to remember the title of the course is Speak Spanish with Your Patients, but the website, to make it shorter because it was kind of long, Speak Spanish with Patients. And then you can go there, check out, register or look at our course and look at the modules. And we have the write-up on the different components and all that. And
Nice.
You can find our contact information. Feel free to reach out. I love meeting people and answering questions, and we're happy to.
Yeah. So for those of you, there's a number, people who also watch after the live. Some people are at work. If they have questions about how to get their course approved, we can drop them here. We can do our best, but also encouraging you. The CDR is very responsive to questions and getting on the phone. I think that's a really great tip. They do have live chat and they have email, but nothing's better sometimes than a live human. And to submit your approval request before June 1st, as complete as you can, but at least get in before the deadline to, if you have a course in the works, you might as well, if you think.
And just to say one more thing, Megan, on that note, it's just a good point. It's not, granted, every time you submit an activity, you have to pay either $30 if it's 1 to 10 CEUs. Now, the good news, you have to look at the good news. The good news is it's not like 10 times 30. You know what I'm saying? It's just, you pay $30 whether it's 1 CEU or whether it's 10 CEUs. But every time you submit a course, it's more money, right? So that's something to think about, that if you do get prior approved before June 1st, you're good for 3 years and you don't have to pay the money.
Yeah, I've got to look up the self-study versus the one in the 3 years. I'm going to have to, I'll look it up and I'll add a little comment in the notes for today.
Perfect.
So good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the live show. For everyone, next week we are talking about better writing skills and how to make time to write. So I think sometimes we're often Anna Riesdorf, who manages the group Dietitians Who Write, is going to really help us improve our writing skills, whether you blog or do contract work or trying to work on a book or write content for your course, how to really get in that mindset to get good quality writing in when we're all rushed and kind of crashed for time. So it'll be fun interview. Thank you, Ilene, for taking time to share your experience, and congrats on the course. Yes, that it will be fully available on May 30th. SpeakSpanishWithYourPatients.com. Thanks again.
Thank you, Megan. Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.